The scream tore through Ward 7 like a blade through silk, sharp, primal, impossible to ignore. It came every night at the exact same moment, when Lena Carter's head touched the pillow. Not when she sat, not when she stood, only when she lay down. The nurses had stopped running to her room by week 2. The doctors had stopped ordering tests by week 3. By week 4, they'd labeled her file with a single damning word, psychological. But Maya Raines, night nurse, invisible, 29 years old, and perpetually dismissed, had counted every scream. 31 nights, 31 identical reactions. And the scans? Perfectly clean. No tumors, no fractures, no explanation. Just a young woman writhing in agony while an entire hospital shrugged and walked away. Maya stood in the hallway that 31st night, staring at the closed door of room 712, and felt something cold settle in her gut. What if they were all wrong? What if the pain wasn't in Lena's mind, but hidden exactly where no one thought to look? If you want to see how far this story travels, follow it to the very end and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to know how far the truth can reach. The Silver Ridge Medical Center rose 11 stories above the valley floor, a monument of glass and steel that reflected nothing but its own importance. Inside, the air smelled of antiseptic and exhaustion. Maya Raines moved through the third-floor corridor with the practiced invisibility of someone who'd learned long ago that being seen meant being assigned more work. Her scrubs were faded blue, her badge clipped crooked, her ponytail pulled tight enough to give her a headache by hour 6 of every shift. She was unremarkable in every way that mattered to the people who ran this place, which was exactly why she noticed things they didn't. Room 712 sat at the end of the hall, tucked between the supply closet and the emergency stairwell. The door was always half open, the blinds always drawn. Inside, Lena Carter lay propped against a stack of pillows, her face pale and drawn, her eyes tracing patterns on the ceiling tiles like she was counting down to something. She was 21, college athlete, scholarship runner. 3 weeks ago, she'd checked in with what her intake form called acute localized cranial pain of unknown origin. 3 weeks later, nothing had changed except the tone in the doctors' voices when they talked about her. Maya paused outside the door, pretending to check her tablet. Inside, Dr. Raymond Colfax stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, mouth set in a line that suggested he'd already made up his mind. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice clinical and flat. "We've run every scan available. CT, MRI, full neurological workup. There's nothing physically wrong with you." Lena's hands gripped the blanket. "Then why does it feel like someone's driving nails into my skull every time I lie down?" Colfax didn't blink. "Pain is complex. Stress, anxiety, even unresolved trauma can manifest as physical symptoms. I'm recommending a psychiatric consult." "I'm not crazy. No one said you were." But his tone said otherwise. He scribbled something on his chart, snapped it shut, and walked past Maya without a glance. She stepped aside, letting him pass, then slipped into the room. Lena's eyes flicked toward her. "You're the night nurse." "Maya." She adjusted the IV line, checked the monitor, did the small tasks that bought her time. "How are you feeling right now?" "Fine, as long as I don't lie down." Maya tilted her head. "What happens when you do?" Lena's jaw tightened. "It's like pressure, then burning, then it feels like something's inside my head trying to get out." She paused. "But the scans say I'm making it up." "They don't say that. They don't have to." Lena looked away. "Everyone already knows." Maya said nothing. She finished her checks, made a note on her tablet, and left the room. But she didn't leave the hallway. She stood just outside, tablet in hand, and opened Lena's file. 31 days of admission, 14 scans, 6 doctors, 0 findings. And yet the pain was consistent, localized, and triggered only by a specific position. Maya scrolled through the notes, reading between the lines of clinical detachment, and found the same phrase repeated in 4 different entries. Patient insists pain is real. Insists, as if belief were the problem. She closed the file and walked back to the nurses' station, where 2 of her colleagues were leaning against the counter, scrolling through their phones. "Still babysitting the screamer?" one of them asked without looking up. Maya set her tablet down. "Her name's Lena." "Same difference. Girl's got issues." Or she's got a problem no one's figured out yet. The other nurse snorted. Colfax ran everything. If he says it's in her head, it's in her head. Maya didn't argue. She'd learned years ago that arguing with people who'd already decided the truth was a waste of breath. Instead, she picked up her tablet and moved on to the next room, the next patient, the next task. But her mind stayed on room 712. Maya had been a nurse for 7 years. She'd started at Silver Ridge fresh out of school, full of idealism and determination, ready to change the world one patient at a time. That optimism had lasted approximately 6 months. After that, she'd learned the unspoken rules. Don't question doctors, don't challenge protocols, don't make waves. Nurses who spoke up got labeled difficult. Nurses who pushed back got reassigned. Nurses who insisted they were right when doctors said they were wrong found themselves working permanent night shifts in the quietest, least prestigious wards, which was exactly where Maya had ended up. She didn't mind the night shift. It suited her. Fewer people meant fewer personalities to navigate, fewer egos to massage. The patients were calmer, the hallways were quieter. And when something felt wrong, she had time to think about it without a dozen voices telling her to move on. Something felt wrong about Lena Carter. At 11 p.m., the lights dimmed. The hospital settled into its nocturnal rhythm, beeping monitors, distant footsteps, the hum of machines keeping people alive. Maya made her rounds, checking vitals, adjusting IVs, offering water and reassurance in equal measure. She reached room 712 just before midnight. Lena was sitting upright, staring at the pillow like it was a loaded gun. "You haven't laid down yet," Maya said quietly. "I'm trying to put it off as long as I can." Lena's voice was raw. "The longer I wait, the longer I don't have to feel it." Maya stepped closer. "What if we tried a different pillow?" Lena shook her head. "Already did. They gave me 3 different ones. Same result every time." "Same pain?" "Exact same spot, right here." She touched the back of her head, just above the base of her skull. "It's like something's digging in." Maya's eyes moved to the pillow. Standard issue hospital pillow, white cotton cover, institutional firmness. Nothing special, nothing suspicious. But something about the way Lena described the pain, localized, sharp, consistent, gnawed at her. "Let me get you some water," Maya said, stepping out. She didn't go to the water station. She went to the supply closet, pulled a fresh pillow from the shelf, and brought it back. "Try this one." Lena looked skeptical, but took it. She set it behind her head, hesitated, then slowly lowered herself down. For 5 seconds, there was silence. Then her eyes widened. "It's better. It doesn't hurt as much." Maya's pulse quickened. "But it still hurts?" "A little, but not like before." Maya removed the original pillow from the bed and held it in her hands. It felt normal, looked normal, but something was wrong. She could feel it now, the same instinct that had kept her awake for 31 nights. "I'll be right back," she said. She carried the pillow to the empty break room, locked the door, and set it on the table. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Then she pulled a pair of scissors from the drawer and, without letting herself think too hard, cut into the seam. The fabric peeled back, stuffing spilled out, and then metal, dozens of them, rusted, jagged, deliberately placed. Nails. Old ones, corroded and sharp, hidden deep inside the filling where no scan would ever catch them. Positioned perfectly to press into the back of a skull when weight was applied. Maya's hands started shaking. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She pulled out her phone, took 3 photos from different angles, then carefully recovered the pillow and carried it back to the nurse's station. She logged into the incident reporting system, attached the photos, and filed a report directly to hospital administration with a single line. "Foreign objects found inside patient pillow. Immediate investigation required." Then she went back to room 712. Lena was sitting up again, arms wrapped around her knees. "What did you find?" Maya met her eyes. "Proof." The next hour moved like molasses. Maya continued her rounds, forcing herself to maintain routine while her mind raced. She'd filed the report. Protocol dictated that administration would review it by morning and initiate an investigation. But morning was 7 hours away, and every instinct told her that 7 hours was too long. She returned to the nurse's station to find Karen Voss, her supervisor, staring at a computer screen with an expression somewhere between confusion and alarm. Maya, Karen said slowly, not looking up, did you file an incident report about nails in a pillow? Yes. You cut open hospital property. I found a weapon. Karen finally looked at her. You can't just destroy equipment because you have a hunch. It wasn't a hunch. It was evidence. Evidence of what? Some kind of conspiracy? Karen's tone was dismissive, but there was uncertainty beneath it. Maya, I know you care about your patients, but this is extreme. Look at the photos. Karen hesitated, then clicked through the images. Her face went pale. How did these get in there? That's what we need to find out. We need to call security. We need to call the police. Karen stood abruptly. I'm escalating this to Dr. Brennan. She grabbed her phone and walked toward the administrative wing, leaving Maya alone at the station. Maya sat down, her legs suddenly unsteady. She'd crossed a line, destroyed hospital property, bypassed her supervisor, filed a report that would either vindicate her or end her career. And she'd done it all based on 31 nights of watching a girl scream. 20 minutes later, Karen returned with Dr. Thomas Brennan, the hospital's chief of medicine. Brennan was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of authority that came from 3 decades of making life-and-death decisions. He looked at Maya like she was a particularly troubling lab result. Miss Raines, he said, I've reviewed your report and the accompanying photos. This is a serious allegation. It's a serious crime, Maya replied. We don't know that it's a crime. We don't know how those objects got inside the pillow. Someone put them there. Or they were manufacturing defects, or contamination during production, or, with respect, Dr. Brennan, that pillow was specifically assigned to Lena Carter's room. She's been in pain for 31 days. Every scan came back clean. The pain only occurs when she lies down. And when I gave her a different pillow, the pain decreased. Maya kept her voice level. That's not coincidence. Brennan's jaw tightened. What you're suggesting is that someone inside this hospital deliberately placed a dangerous object in a patient's bed. Do you understand how serious that accusation is? Do you understand how serious her pain has been? They stared at each other. Karen shifted uncomfortably between them. Finally, Brennan said, I'm calling security. They'll secure the pillow and launch an internal investigation. In the meantime, you are to continue your duties and not discuss this with anyone. Understood? What about Lena? We'll move her to a different room with fresh bedding. She'll be monitored. And if someone tries again? Brennan's expression hardened. That's enough, Miss Raines. You've done your job. Let us do ours. He walked away. Karen lingered for a moment, looking like she wanted to say something, then followed him. Maya sat alone at the nurse's station, staring at her hands. She'd done the right thing. She knew she had. But the weight of what came next pressed down on her like a physical thing. If she was wrong, if those nails were somehow innocent, some bizarre accident, she'd destroyed her credibility. She'd be the nurse who cut open a pillow and cried conspiracy. But if she was right, someone had spent weeks torturing a young woman, using Silver Ridge Medical Center as their weapon, and they were still out there. By 6 a.m., the 3rd floor was no longer quiet. Security had cordoned off room 712. 2 administrators stood in the hallway, whispering urgently into their phones. Dr. Colfax arrived looking like he'd been dragged from bed, which he had. Maya stood near the wall, arms crossed, watching the controlled chaos unfold. One of the administrators, a tall man in a suit 2 sizes too expensive for his job, approached her. You're the nurse who filed the report? Yes. And you removed the pillow from the patient's room without authorization? Maya didn't flinch. I removed a weapon. His jaw tightened. That's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious crime. Before he could respond, the elevator doors opened, and a man stepped out. He was in his 50s, broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made people step aside without being asked. His uniform was crisp, his insignia unmistakable. U.S. Army, full colonel. He walked straight toward them, and the administrator's face went pale. Colonel Carter, the man stammered. We weren't expecting, but where's my daughter? She's safe, sir. We're handling... I didn't ask if you're handling it. I asked where she is. Maya spoke up. Room 712, she's stable. The colonel's eyes shifted to her. Who are you? Maya Raines, night nurse. He studied her for a beat, then nodded once. Show me. She led him down the hall. Security parted. The administrators trailed behind, trying to salvage control they'd already lost. Maya opened the door to 712, and the colonel stepped inside. Lena looked up. Dad, are you hurt? No, not anymore. He crossed the room in 3 strides, took her face in his hands, and searched her eyes like he was looking for hidden wounds. Tell me everything. She did. Every word, every scream, every dismissal. And when she finished, the silence in the room was colder than the air conditioning. The colonel turned to the administrators. You let my daughter suffer for a month because you couldn't be bothered to believe her. Sir, we ran every test. And you found nothing, so you labeled her broken. His voice dropped. Someone put those nails in that pillow, someone in this hospital, and you're going to find out who. The taller administrator stammered. We're already investigating it. No. The colonel's tone was final. You're done. As of now, this is a military investigation. Within the hour, the hospital was locked down. Military police arrived. Surveillance footage was pulled. Every employee on shift during Lena's admission was questioned. The pillow was sent to forensics. And Maya, the quiet night nurse no one had ever paid attention to, became the key witness in a case that was about to crack the foundation of Silver Ridge Medical Center wide open. She sat in a small conference room answering questions from an MP investigator with calm precision. Yes, she'd noticed the pattern. Yes, she'd acted on instinct. No, she hadn't been authorized, but she'd been right. Do you have any idea who might have done this? The investigator asked. Maya shook her head. But I know it wasn't random. Those nails were placed deliberately. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. The investigator made a note. We'll find them. Maya believed him. The hospital's cafeteria had been converted into a temporary command center. Tables were covered with laptops, file boxes, and stacks of employee records. MPs moved through the space with military efficiency, cross-referencing schedules, pulling security footage, building timelines. Maya watched from the doorway, feeling both central and peripheral to the operation unfolding around her. An MP named Lieutenant Hayes approached her, a folder tucked under his arm. Miss Raines, we need you to walk us through your observations again. Specifically, we want to know about any staff members you saw entering or leaving room 712 during Carter's admission. Maya nodded and followed him to a quiet corner. Over the next hour, she reconstructed 31 days from memory, which nurses had been assigned to Lena's care, which doctors had examined her, which orderlies had delivered meals, which cleaning staff had serviced the room. Her notes helped. She documented everything without realizing it would become evidence. Hayes made careful notations. You have a remarkable memory. I have a good system. Maya paused. Have you found anything yet? Hayes glanced toward the command center. We're narrowing it down. Supply chain records show the pillow was delivered 3 days before Carter's admission. It was part of a standard bulk order, 200 pillows, all distributed across floors 2 through 5. But only 1 pillow was contaminated. So someone tampered with it after delivery. That's our working theory, which means we're looking for someone with access to the supply room and knowledge of which room Carter would be assigned to. Maya's stomach tightened. That's a short list. Shorter than you'd think. Only 12 people had both access and knowledge. Do I know any of them? Hayes looked at his notes. 4 are nurses, 3 are doctors, 2 are administrators, the rest are support staff. Maya's mind raced through faces and names. People she'd worked alongside for years. People she'd trusted. The idea that one of them had spent weeks torturing Lena made her feel sick. What happens now? She asked. Now we interview everyone on the list, and we wait for forensics to come back on the nails themselves. If we're lucky, there'll be prints or trace evidence that points us to the perpetrator. And if we're not lucky, Hayes met her eyes. Then this gets harder. By noon, the first arrest was made. A contractor named Eddie Voss, low-level supply chain worker, responsible for pillow deliveries to the 3rd floor. Surveillance showed him entering the storage room alone on 3 separate occasions, always after hours, always carrying a duffel bag. When MPs searched his locker, they found tools, pliers, wire cutters, and a half-empty box of rusted nails. He was brought in, questioned, and within 20 minutes, he broke. I didn't want to do it, he said, his voice shaking in the interrogation room. Maya watched through one-way glass, Hayes standing beside her. I needed the money. I was told it was just a prank. Nothing serious. Who told you? The interrogator demanded. Voss hesitated. Then he gave a name, and the room went silent. Because the name wasn't some random grudge holder. It wasn't a disgruntled employee or a petty rival. It was someone with reach. Someone with motive. Someone who'd used Lana Carter as a weapon against her father. The interrogator leaned forward. Say that again. Voss repeated it. And somewhere deep in the chain of command, the pieces started falling into place. This wasn't about Lena. It never had been. It was about breaking the man who'd spent his career winning wars, about making him watch his daughter suffer, powerless to stop it. Revenge, dressed up as medical mystery. Hayes turned to Maya. We need to brief Colonel Carter. This just became personal. They found him in Lena's new room, a private suite on the 4th floor with round-the-clock security. He was sitting in a chair beside her bed, watching her sleep. He looked up when they entered. We have a name, Hayes said quietly. Carter stood. Who? Hayes glanced at Maya, then back at the colonel. Marcus Drilling, former Army logistics officer, served under your command in Afghanistan. Discharged 8 years ago after you filed complaints about misappropriation of supplies. Carter's face went blank. Then his eyes turned to ice. Drilling. You remember him? I remember filing the paperwork that ended his career. Carter's voice was barely above a whisper. He was stealing from his own men, selling equipment on the black market. Soldiers were going without body armor because Drilling wanted a bigger house. He blamed you for his discharge, Hayes said. According to Voss, Drilling orchestrated this entire operation as payback. He wanted you to watch your daughter suffer and feel powerless to stop it. Carter's hands curled into fists. Where is he? We don't know yet. He hasn't been seen at his residence in 2 days. We've issued a warrant, but find him. Carter's tone left no room for argument. I don't care what it takes. Find him. Hayes nodded and left. Maya lingered near the door, unsure whether to stay or go. Carter turned to her. You saved her life, he said. I just paid attention. Most people didn't. He looked back at Lena, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. She told me what you did, how you listened when everyone else had stopped, how you refused to accept the easy answer. Maya's throat tightened. I'm sorry it took so long. You have nothing to apologize for. Carter's voice was firm. You did what doctors with decades of experience failed to do. You saw her pain as real. That matters more than you know. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She turned to leave, but Carter's voice stopped her. Miss Raines? She looked back. When this is over, I want to make sure you're recognized for what you've done. Not just by me, by everyone. Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded again and walked out, leaving the colonel alone with his daughter. The rest of the day passed in a blur of interviews, briefings, and waiting. Forensics confirmed that the nails matched the box found in Voss's locker. Security footage showed him accessing the supply room 3 times, once to tamper with the pillow, twice more to check his work. And phone records revealed dozens of calls between Voss and a burner number traced to Marcus Drilling. By evening, federal authorities had joined the investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced they were preparing charges: attempted murder, conspiracy, assault with a deadly weapon, abuse of a medical facility. The list went on, but Drilling was still missing. Maya finished her shift at 8 p.m., exhausted and wired at the same time. She drove home on autopilot, her mind replaying the past 36 hours. The pillow, the nails, the confession. The look on Colonel Carter's face when he'd realized his daughter had been used as a pawn in someone else's vendetta. She parked in front of her apartment and sat in the darkness, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed, a text from Karen. Just heard the news. I'm sorry I doubted you. You did the right thing. Maya didn't reply. She was too tired for validation, too numb for vindication. She just wanted to sleep for a week and wake up in a world where people believed victims the first time. She climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The space was small, cluttered, the kind of place you lived in but never really settled into. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights glittered like false promises. Somewhere out there, Marcus Drilling was hiding, planning, maybe even watching. And Maya, the invisible night nurse who'd unraveled his entire operation, had just become the person he couldn't afford to let live. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she saw the preview. You should have minded your own business. Her blood ran cold. She opened the message. No signature, no context, just those 8 words. Then another message arrived. This isn't over. Maya's hand started shaking. She dialed Lieutenant Hayes. Someone just threatened me, she said when he answered. Forward the messages. We'll trace them. She did. Then she locked her door, checked every window, and sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in her lap. Because the case wasn't closed. The monster wasn't caught. And somewhere in the darkness, Marcus Drilling was coming for the one person who'd exposed him. The knock came at 2:13 a.m. Maya jerked awake on the couch, the knife sliding from her lap to the floor with a clatter. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the door, every muscle locked tight. Another knock, 3 sharp raps that echoed through the small apartment like gunshots. Miss Raines, it's Lieutenant Hayes, Federal Protection Detail. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Anyone could claim to be federal protection. Anyone could knock on a door at 2 in the morning and say the right words. Her hand found the knife on the floor, fingers wrapping around the handle until her knuckles went white. I'm going to hold my badge up to the peephole, the voice continued, calm and professional. Look now. Maya crept to the door, every nerve screaming at her to run, to hide, to do anything except what she was doing. She peered through the peephole. A badge filled her view. FBI credentials, photo ID matching the man standing in her hallway. Behind him, 2 more agents in tactical gear, their faces stone serious, hands resting near their sidearms. She unlocked the door. Hayes stepped inside immediately, his eyes scanning the apartment with the efficiency of someone trained to spot threats in seconds. Pack a bag. Essentials only. We're moving you in 5 minutes. Where? Somewhere Drilling can't find you. He nodded to one of the agents, a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes, who moved to the window and checked the street below with practiced precision. We traced those texts. Burner phone routed through 3 different towers to mask location, but we narrowed the final ping. The sender was within 3 blocks of this building when the messages went out. Maya's stomach dropped like she'd missed a step in the dark. He knows where I live. He's known since yesterday morning. We think he's been watching you since before we even identified him. Hayes pulled out his phone, swiping to a surveillance photo that made Maya's blood run cold. A man in a baseball cap and dark jacket, standing across the street from her apartment building, his face angled away from the camera, but his body language suggesting he was staring directly at her windows. The timestamp read 11:40 p.m., less than 3 hours ago. That's him? We can't confirm facial recognition from this angle. He knew where the cameras were, stayed just out of frame, but the build, the height, the gait, all matched Drilling's profile from military records. And 30 minutes after this photo was taken, you received the first text. Hayes pocketed his phone, his expression hardening. We're not taking any chances. You're a material witness and potentially a primary target. We're relocating you to a federal safe house until Drilling is in custody. Maya looked around her apartment. 7 years of life compressed into 400 square feet of secondhand furniture and faded paint. The place had never felt like home, exactly, but it had been hers. A space where she could close the door and pretend the world outside didn't exist for a few hours. Now even that illusion was shattered. How long will I be gone? As long as it takes. Hayes' expression softened fractionally, a crack in his professional armor. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you decided to cut open that pillow, but you broke this case wide open, and that makes you valuable, which unfortunately also makes you vulnerable. Maya grabbed her duffel bag from the closet and started throwing in clothes without really looking at what she was packing. Jeans, scrubs, t-shirts. Her hands moved on autopilot while her brain struggled to process the surreal nightmare her life had become. 48 hours ago, she'd been an invisible night nurse, someone people looked through rather than at. Now she was fleeing her own home because a man she'd never met wanted her dead. She added toiletries, her laptop, phone chargers, a worn paperback she'd been reading in stolen moments between shifts. The female agent appeared in the doorway. 2 minutes, Rains. We need to move. Maya zipped the bag and took one last look around. She had a sudden, irrational urge to water the half-dead succulent on the windowsill, to do something normal and mundane that would anchor her to the person she'd been before all this started. But there wasn't time. There was never time. The agents escorted her downstairs through the back stairwell, bypassing the main entrance entirely. One led, one followed, and Hayes stayed at her shoulder, his hand never far from his weapon. They moved in silence, their footsteps echoing in the concrete shaft. Maya caught a glimpse of her reflection in a window as they passed. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like someone running for her life. Because she was. A black SUV waited in the alley behind her building, engine already running, exhaust creating ghosts in the cold air. Maya climbed into the back seat, and they pulled away before she'd even fastened her seatbelt. She twisted around to look through the rear window, watching her apartment building shrink and then disappear as they turned a corner. It felt disturbingly final. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadow. At this hour, the streets were mostly empty. A few late-night delivery trucks, a handful of taxis, the occasional pedestrian hurrying home from a closing bar. Normal life, continuing as if nothing had changed, as if a girl hadn't been tortured for a month, as if Maya's entire world hadn't been upended. The female agent turned from the front passenger seat, studying Maya with eyes that missed nothing. "I'm Agent Reese. I'll be your primary detail for the duration of your stay at the safe house. My partner here is Agent Santos." She nodded toward the driver, a solid man with graying temples who kept his eyes on the road. "The safe house is equipped with everything you'll need: food, clothing, secure communications. But there are rules. No personal phones, no social media, no contact with anyone outside the investigation, unless it's cleared through Lieutenant Hayes first. Understood?" Maya nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "Good. Try to get some rest if you can. We've got a 40-minute drive ahead of us." Rest felt like an impossible luxury, but Maya closed her eyes anyway, leaning her head against the cold window. The vibration of the road hummed through the glass, a monotonous rhythm that should have been soothing. Instead, her mind raced through the past 2 days on an endless loop. Lena's screams, the rusted nails hidden in the pillow, Colonel Carter's expression when he'd realized his daughter had been used as a weapon, Eddie Voss breaking down in the interrogation room, the threatening text messages that had shattered any illusion of safety. She must have dozed despite herself, because the next thing she knew, Agent Santos was announcing, "We're here," and Maya opened her eyes to find they'd left the city entirely. The safe house sat at the end of a gravel driveway, surrounded by dense woods that pressed in from all sides. No neighbors within shouting distance, no streetlights to push back the darkness. Just trees and silence and the crunch of gravel under tires. The house itself was small and nondescript, the kind of place you'd drive past without a second glance if you somehow stumbled across it. Inside, the space was sparse but functional. 2 bedrooms off a narrow hallway, a kitchenette with basic appliances, a living area with reinforced windows covered by heavy blackout curtains. Everything was clean and impersonal, like a hotel room that had never quite managed to feel welcoming. Agent Reese did a quick sweep of the perimeter while Hayes set up communication equipment on the dining table. A laptop, a secure phone line, encryption devices that looked like something out of a spy thriller. Maya stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room, still clutching her duffel bag, unsure what to do with herself. "Make yourself comfortable," Hayes said without looking up from the tangle of cables he was connecting. "We'll have someone posted outside 24/7. Motion sensors on all approaches. The panic room is through that door." He pointed to what looked like a closet. "If anything goes wrong, you're as safe here as we can make you." Maya wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that concrete walls and armed guards and motion sensors would be enough to keep Marcus drilling at bay. But safety felt like a concept from another life, something she'd lost the moment she decided to cut open that pillow and see what was making Lena Carter scream. She chose the smaller of the 2 bedrooms, dropped her bag on the floor, and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was firm, the sheets sterile-smelling and tightly tucked. Through the window, reinforced glass, she noted, she could see Agent Reese's silhouette moving through the trees, checking perimeter, weapon visible at her hip. The isolation should have felt suffocating. Instead, for the first time in days, Maya felt like she could breathe without waiting for the next crisis to detonate. Her new secure phone, provided by Hayes, encrypted beyond anything she'd ever used, buzzed against her palm. A text from an unknown number that resolved into a name when she opened it, Colonel Carter. Hayes gave me this line. "How are you holding up?" Maya stared at the message for a long moment, trying to figure out how to answer honestly. She settled on, "I'm fine. How's Lena?" The response came quickly. "Recovering. Doctors cleared her for discharge tomorrow. She's asking about you. Wants to thank you in person when this is over. Tell her I'm glad she's okay. That's all that matters." A pause that stretched long enough for Maya to think the conversation was over. Then, "Drilling made a mistake targeting my daughter. But he made a bigger mistake going after you. We'll find him. That's a promise." Maya set the phone on the nightstand and lay back on the bed staring at the ceiling. Water-stained tiles, textured paint, completely unremarkable. She'd spent her entire career being unremarkable, invisible, the background character in other people's stories. And now she was at the center of a federal manhunt, protected by armed guards in a safe house in the middle of nowhere because a man she'd never met wanted her dead for doing the right thing. The irony wasn't lost on her. Sleep came eventually, though it was fitful and fragmented, dreams of rusted nails and screaming and shadows in the darkness that moved wrong. She woke multiple times, disoriented and gasping, before finally giving up around 6 a.m. Pale light filtered through the reinforced windows, turning the bedroom gray and cold. She got up, splashed water on her face in the small bathroom, and emerged to find Hayes and Reese huddled around the laptop at the dining table. They looked up when she entered. "Morning," Hayes said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "Coffee's in the kitchen. Help yourself." Maya poured a cup from the pot that was already half empty and joined them at the table. The laptop screen displayed a map covered in red dots, clustered in and around the Silver Ridge area like a constellation of bad intentions. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "Cell tower pings from Drilling's burner phone over the past 72 hours. Hayes pointed to the various clusters with the end of a pen. "He's been moving in a deliberate pattern, circling the hospital, your apartment building, Colonel Carter's residence, even the federal building where we processed Voss. He's not just running, he's scouting, planning something." "Planning what?" "That's the million-dollar question." Reese zoomed in on one of the dots, her expression grim. "He made a call at 3:14 this morning from a location approximately 2 miles north of this safe house. We had a team on site within 15 minutes. He was gone." Maya's grip tightened on her coffee mug hard enough to hurt. "He knows about the safe house?" "We don't think so. If he did, he would have made a move already. The call went to another burner number, one we haven't been able to trace yet. But the conversation lasted 8 minutes, which suggests detailed coordination." Reese looked up from the screen. "Someone's helping him, and we need to figure out who before they make another move." "Coordination with who? I thought Voss said Drilling hired him directly." Hayes exchanged a weighted glance with Reese, the kind of look that spoke of conversations Maya hadn't been privy to. "Voss gave us part of the story, but we're starting to think the network runs deeper. Drilling was military logistics. He knows how to build supply chains, how to move resources without detection. But manipulating hospital systems, patient assignments, medical records, that requires insider knowledge, someone with credentials and access." Maya's pulse quickened, a sick feeling spreading through her chest. "You think someone else at Silver Ridge helped him?" "We're certain of it." Hayes pulled up another screen. Employee records, dozens of them, with several names highlighted in yellow. "We've narrowed it down to personnel who had the right combination of access and opportunity. People who could manipulate room assignments, control supply deliveries, maybe even influence which doctors saw which patients." Maya scanned the names, her stomach churning as she recognized face after face. Karen Voss, her supervisor. Tomas Reed, a quiet night nurse she'd worked alongside for 3 years. Dr. Raymond Colfax, who'd been so quick to dismiss Lena's pain as psychological. Even Dr. Sarah Brennan, who'd always seemed competent and compassionate. These were people she'd trusted, colleagues she'd shared shifts and coffee breaks with. "These are my coworkers," she said quietly, hating how small her voice sounded. "One or more of them might be Drilling's accomplices," Reese said, her tone matter-of-fact and clinical. "We're bringing them in for questioning today. If someone helped orchestrate Lena Carter's torture, we'll find out." Maya set her coffee down, suddenly too nauseated to drink. What do you need from me? Your observations. Hayes opened a fresh document on the laptop. You worked with these people daily during Lena's admission. If anyone displayed unusual behavior, changes in routine, unexplained absences, stress, anything that felt off at the time, we need to know about it. Maya closed her eyes, forcing herself to think past the shock and betrayal. She'd been so focused on Lena, so consumed by the mystery of the pain that wouldn't show up on scans, that she hadn't paid attention to the people around her. But now, deliberately rewinding through the past month, small details began surfacing like bodies in a river. Dr. Colfax, she said slowly, opening her eyes. He was Lena's attending physician. He pushed the psychiatric diagnosis harder than anyone else, even when the symptoms didn't fit the profile. And he was evasive. Whenever I tried to discuss alternative explanations for her pain, he'd shut me down. Not just dismissive, actively hostile to the idea that something physical might be wrong. Hayes made notes. Anything else? His schedule was irregular during Lena's stay. Normally, he's clockwork. Rounds at 7 a.m., office hours until noon, procedures in the afternoon. But during that month, he called in sick 3 times, canceled appointments, showed up at odd hours. At the time, I thought maybe he was dealing with personal issues. Now, she trailed off, the implications settling like lead in her stomach. Now it looks like he was coordinating, Reese finished. Who else? Tomas Reed. He works night shift, same rotation as me. He was always quiet, kept to himself, but he volunteered for supply room duty more than anyone else. Said he liked organizing, keeping inventory straight. I remember thinking it was unusual. Most nurses avoid that work because it's tedious, but he actively sought it out, which gave him unsupervised access to incoming deliveries, Hayes said, typing rapidly, including pillows. Maya nodded, the pieces clicking together with nauseating clarity. There was one night, maybe 2 weeks into Lena's admission, I saw him coming out of the supply room at 3 a.m. He looked startled when he saw me, said he couldn't sleep and decided to catch up on organization. I didn't think anything of it then. But you remember it now. Because it was strange. People don't reorganize supply closets at 3 in the morning unless they're hiding something. Hayes pulled up Reed's personnel file, scanning through years of employment records. 12 years at Silver Ridge, clean disciplinary record. No complaints? Model employee. He looked at Maya, which makes him either genuinely innocent or very good at hiding. They spent the next 3 hours going through Maya's recollections in excruciating detail. Every interaction, every oddity, every moment that had pinged her instincts but not loud enough to act on. By noon, she'd filled 12 pages of notes in Hayes's document, a map of suspicion that felt like betrayal even as she recognized its necessity. Hayes reviewed the notes, his expression growing progressively darker. This is substantial. This gives us leverage in the interrogations. He looked up at Maya. We're bringing Reed and Colfax in this afternoon. Would you be willing to observe remotely? We can set up a secure video feed from here. Maya didn't hesitate. Yes. It might be difficult, watching people you know get questioned. I've watched difficult things before. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I need to see this through. The afternoon crawled by with the agonizing slowness of waiting for surgery results. Hayes set up the video feed on the laptop, a split screen showing 2 interrogation rooms at the federal building downtown. Empty chairs, blank walls, the machinery of justice waiting to grind into motion. At 2:15, Tomas Reed was escorted into the left-hand room. He looked smaller than Maya remembered, diminished by the stark lighting and metal furniture. Confused, certainly. Nervous, absolutely, but not guilty. Not yet. He sat when instructed, hands folded on the table, eyes darting to the one-way mirror as if he could see through it to whoever was watching. Hayes conducted the interview with surgical precision, his voice calm and reasonable but relentless in its probing. Questions about Reed's schedule during Lena's admission, his access to the supply room, his financial situation, whether he'd ever met or communicated with Marcus Drilling. Reed denied everything. His voice was steady, but his hands weren't. They trembled slightly as he gestured, contradicting his calm assertions. He'd never heard of Marcus Drilling. He'd only been doing his job, the same job he'd done for 12 years. If there were irregularities in his schedule, it It was because he'd been covering for sick colleagues. Then Hayes laid out the phone records, calls between Drilling's burner phone and a number registered to Reed's girlfriend. 4 conversations over 3 weeks, ranging from 90 seconds to 12 minutes. The timestamps corresponded exactly with periods when Reed had volunteered for supply room duty. Reed's face crumpled like wet paper. "I didn't know what he was planning. You have to believe me. I swear I didn't know." "Then tell me what you did know." Hayes's voice remained level, giving Reed nothing to push against. He said his name was Mike. Said he was a friend of a friend who needed a favor. Harmless stuff. Just make sure a specific pillow got delivered to a specific room. He said it was a prank. Something for a buddy's daughter who was always complaining about hospital pillows. I thought it was weird, but he offered me $5,000. Reed's voice cracked. "I needed the money. My girlfriend's mother has cancer. Medical bills are crushing us. I thought it was just a stupid prank." A prank that lasted 31 days? He kept extending it, kept saying 1 more week, always with another payment. By the time I realized something was wrong, I was in too deep. If I stopped, he said he'd expose everything, get me fired, maybe arrested. Reed looked directly at the camera, as if he could see Maya watching. "I didn't know she was in pain. I swear I didn't know." Hayes let the silence stretch, a technique Maya recognized from crime shows, but had never seen deployed with such devastating effectiveness. Finally, "Who else was involved?" Reed shook his head miserably. "I don't know. I only dealt with Mike, with drilling. He never mentioned anyone else." "Did he mention Dr. Colfax?" "No, I don't—" "Wait." Reed's eyes widened. "There was one call. He said something about the doctor is handling his end. I didn't think about it at the time." Hayes leaned forward. "When was this?" "Maybe 3 weeks ago, right after the girl started asking for psychiatric evaluation." "And did he say which doctor?" "No, just the doctor. I assumed he meant whoever was treating her." Hayes made notes, his expression unreadable. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. You've been very helpful." The interview continued for another 20 minutes, extracting every detail Reed could remember, but the critical information had already been delivered. Someone at Silveridge, almost certainly Colfax, had been coordinating with drilling from inside the hospital. At 3:30, Doctor, Raymond Colfax was brought into the right-hand interrogation room. The contrast was striking. Where Reed had looked diminished and frightened, Colfax walked in with the confidence of someone who believed himself untouchable. He wore a suit despite being pulled in for questioning, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression one of mild annoyance rather than concern. He sat down, crossed his arms, and waited with the patience of someone accustomed to having others defer to his schedule. Hayes entered carrying a thick folder. He set it on the table between them, but didn't open it. "Dr. Colfax, thank you for coming in." "Did I have a choice?" Colfax's tone was dry, almost amused. "Everyone has choices. Let's talk about yours." Hayes opened the folder, revealing the first page, Lena Carter's medical records. "You were the attending physician for Lena Carter during her month-long admission for unexplained cranial pain. Is that correct?" "Yes, and you diagnosed her condition as psychological in origin." The scans were clean. Extensive neurological workup revealed no physical pathology. When presented with pain that has no organic basis, psychiatric evaluation is the appropriate next step. Colfax spoke like he was lecturing a first-year medical student, his tone professionally condescending. "Even when the patient consistently reported localized pain triggered exclusively by lying down, a highly specific symptom presentation?" Pain is subjective and complex. Patients can convince themselves that symptoms follow patterns when the reality is psychosomatic. Colfax remained unruffled, his confidence unshaken. "Is that your professional opinion? Or your instructions from Marcus Drilling?" For the first time, a crack appeared in Colfax's composure. His eyes narrowed fractionally. "I don't know anyone named Marcus Drilling." Hayes slid a photograph across the table. "This was taken 3 weeks ago at the Daily Grind coffee shop, 2 blocks from Silveridge. That's you on the left. Care to identify the man on the right?" Colfax glanced at the photo with elaborate disinterest. "I meet with many people in the course of my professional life. Pharmaceutical representatives, colleagues, former students, researchers. I can't be expected to remember every casual encounter." "This wasn't casual. Our surveillance shows you met with Marcus Drilling 4 times over a 2-month period, always at the same location, always off hospital grounds, always in cash transactions. Hayes laid out more photos, a timeline of meetings, damning in their consistency. I meet people for coffee. That's not a crime. Conspiracy to commit assault is. So is medical malpractice. Abuse of a position of trust. Shall I continue? Colfax's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Hayes produced more evidence, phone records showing dozens of calls between Colfax and Drilling's burner phone, financial records revealing cash deposits into Colfax's personal account totaling $15,000 over 6 weeks, each deposit corresponding with a meeting or phone call. And finally, testimony from Tomas Reed stating that Colfax had personally approved the delivery schedule for the contaminated pillow. You didn't just fail to diagnose Lena Carter correctly, Hayes said, his voice dropping to something cold and final. You actively prevented anyone else from discovering what was really wrong with her. You dismissed her pain. You pushed for psychiatric evaluation. You manipulated her medical records to support a false diagnosis, all while knowing that she was being tortured with an object hidden in her pillow. That's absurd, Colfax said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Is it? Because we have documentary evidence of your coordination with Drilling. We have financial records showing payment. We have testimony placing you as a key facilitator in this conspiracy. Hayes leaned forward. Last chance, Dr. Colfax. Cooperate now, and I can recommend consideration at sentencing. Stay silent, and you go down for everything. Colfax stared at the photos spread across the table. His hands, which had been so steady, began to tremble. I want a lawyer. Smart choice, because you're going to need one. Hayes stood. Dr. Raymond Colfax, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, medical malpractice, abuse of a position of trust, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. The feed cut off as Hayes read Colfax his rights, and agents moved in to process him. Maya sat back from the laptop, her hands shaking. She'd known Colfax for 5 years, worked alongside him, respected his clinical judgment even when she disagreed with his bedside manner, and he'd spent a month deliberately dismissing a patient's agony because someone paid him $15,000. Her secure phone rang. Hayes, you saw? Yes. Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. We're charging both of them. Reed's cooperation will factor into his sentencing, but he's still going to face consequences. Colfax is going down hard. This is career-ending and probably life-altering once he's convicted. Hayes paused. But we still don't have Drilling, and without him in custody, this case isn't closed. Maya's chest tightened with a familiar dread. What happens now? We keep pressing. Drilling's running out of resources, running out of places to hide. He'll make a mistake eventually. They always do. But what if he doesn't? The thought echoed in Maya's mind long after Hayes hung up. What if Marcus Drilling was better at this than they anticipated? What if he stayed in the shadows, patient and invisible, waiting for the right moment to strike? What if that moment came when they least expected it? That evening, as darkness settled over the safe house like a heavy blanket, Maya's secure phone buzzed with another message from Colonel Carter. Lena's home, safe. She's asking about you, wants to know when she can thank you properly. Maya replied, Tell her I'm okay. And tell her none of this was her fault. She knows that intellectually, but trauma doesn't care about logic. No, it doesn't. Maya hesitated, then added, How are you holding up? The response took longer this time. I've survived combat deployments and political nightmares, but watching my daughter suffer while I was powerless to help, that's a different kind of war. One I wasn't prepared for. Maya didn't know what to say to that. How did you comfort a decorated military commander who just watched his daughter be used as a weapon against him? Her phone buzzed again before she could formulate a response. We got a break. Drilling used a credit card 40 minutes ago. Gas station outside Richmond. We're mobilizing units now. Maya's heart rate spiked. Be careful, always. He's desperate now. Desperate men make mistakes. She set the phone down and walked to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see Agent Reese making another perimeter patrol, her silhouette moving through the darkness with practiced efficiency. The woods beyond were silent, the kind of deep quiet that came from being far from civilization. Her mind wandered to Marcus Drilling. What kind of man spent months planning an elaborate torture scheme just to hurt someone who'd wronged him years ago? What kind of hatred burned so deep that collateral damage didn't matter? That destroying an innocent girl's life was acceptable as long as her father suffered? And if they caught him, when they caught him, would that truly be the end? Or did men like Drilling have contingency plans, backup schemes, other people ready to continue their work? Her phone buzzed. She picked it up expecting another update from Colonel Carter. Unknown number. Maya's blood turned to ice. She opened the message with trembling fingers. You think you're safe in your little hideaway. You're not. There's nowhere I can't find you. She immediately hit Hayes' contact. He answered before the first ring finished. What's wrong? He's texting me again, the secure phone. How did he get this number? Forward it to me, now. She did, her fingers barely cooperating. Within seconds, she heard Hayes cursing on the other end of the line, the sound of rapid typing in the background. How is this possible? Maya demanded. You said this phone was secure. It is, which means either someone leaked the number, more typing, or Drilling has access to federal communication systems. Neither option is good. Through the window, Maya saw Reese pull out her phone, reading an alert. Within seconds, both agents were inside, weapons drawn, faces grim. How did he get this number? Reese demanded, echoing Maya's question. Hayes' voice came through the phone, tight with urgency. Still determining that. But I've got a bigger problem. The text originated from a cell tower 2 miles east of your location. The safe house suddenly felt very small and very exposed. He's close, Reese said, already moving to check door locks and window seals. Too close. Lockdown protocol, Hayes ordered through the phone. No one in or out. I'm dispatching backup, but they're 20 minutes out. Maya backed away from the window, her heart slamming against her ribs. They'd promised she was safe here, protected, hidden. But if Drilling could find her phone number and triangulate her location, then there was no such thing as safe. Another text arrived. Did you really think I'd let you destroy everything I built? You had your chance to stay invisible, nurse. Now you're the only loose end I have left. Maya's phone slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers. And outside, somewhere in the darkness beyond the reinforced windows and motion sensors and armed federal agents, Marcus Drilling was watching, waiting, planning his next move. The lights went out. The entire safe house plunged into absolute darkness. Maya froze, her breath catching in her throat. She heard Reese curse somewhere to her left, heard the metallic click of a weapon being drawn. Then emergency lighting kicked in, dim red bulbs casting everything in blood-colored shadows that somehow made the darkness worse. He cut the main power, Reese said, her voice deadly calm. Hayes, do you copy? Static crackled through the phone line, still connected. Then Hayes' voice broke through. Copy. Backup generators should have engaged automatically. They didn't. He sabotaged them. Timeline on backup units? 18 minutes. Can you hold that long? Reese moved to the window, scanning the tree line with night vision goggles pulled from her tactical vest. Depends on what he's bringing to the party. Santos, secure the perimeter access points. I want eyes on every approach. Agent Santos moved with military efficiency, checking door reinforcements and window seals. Maya stood in the center of the living room, feeling utterly useless and completely exposed. Her phone lay on the floor where she'd dropped it, screen still glowing with Drilling's last message. Miss Raines, Reese said without turning from the window. Panic room, now. What about you? We're trained for this. You're not. Move. But before Maya could take a step, Santos called out from the kitchen. We've got movement. Northeast corner, approximately 50 yards out. Reese swung her weapon toward the indicated direction. Visual confirmation? Negative. Thermal signature only. Single target, moving slow and deliberate. Could be a deer? Could be, but deer don't usually carry heat signatures consistent with body armor. Reese's jaw tightened. Hayes, upgrade threat assessment. We have a possible hostile on approach, equipped and tactical. Rules of engagement? Protect the witness. Lethal force authorized if necessary. Reese finally turned to Maya, her expression harder than stone. Panic room. That's not a suggestion. This time Maya moved. She crossed to the closet door Hayes had shown her earlier, punched in the code with shaking fingers. 4729, her mother's birthday, a detail Hayes had asked for when setting up security protocols, and the reinforced door swung open. The panic room beyond was barely larger than a bathroom, steel-lined walls and no windows. A single chair, a landline phone, a red emergency button that would alert every federal agency within 100 miles. "Lock it from inside," Reese ordered. "Don't open for anyone except me or Santos. We'll use the code word Nightingale when this is over. Anything else? Anyone else? You keep that door sealed. Understood?" Maya nodded and stepped inside. The door swung shut with a pneumatic hiss, locks engaging automatically. She was alone in the dim space, her only connection to the outside world, a phone and a growing sense of dread that pressed against her chest like a physical weight. She pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear anything through the reinforced steel. Muffled voices, footsteps. The distant sound of something breaking, glass maybe, or wood splintering. Then a gunshot. The sound was muffled but unmistakable, a sharp crack that made Maya jump back from the door. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her hands flew to the landline phone, fingers hovering over the numbers. Another shot. Then a third. She dialed the emergency number Hayes had given her, the one that would summon federal response teams and local law enforcement and probably half the tactical units on the eastern seaboard. "Federal response, state your emergency. This is Maya Raines, federal witness in protective custody at Safe House Sierra 7. Shots fired. Agents engaged with hostile. I need immediate backup." Her voice sounded steadier than she felt, years of nursing training kicking in. Stay calm in crisis, deliver information clearly, save the panic for later. "Location confirmed. Units already en route, alerted by your protection detail. ETA 17 minutes. Stay on the line and remain in secure location." 17 minutes. Maya clutched the phone like a lifeline, counting seconds that felt like hours. She could hear more sounds now, shouting, something heavy impacting against a wall, the rapid-fire exchange of gunshots that suggested both sides were engaged. "What's happening?" the dispatcher asked, her voice professionally calm. "I don't know. I'm locked in the panic room. I can hear fighting." "Stay where you are. Do not open the door for any reason." Maya pressed her back against the cold steel wall, trying to steady her breathing. Somewhere outside this room, federal agents were fighting for their lives, fighting to protect her, because she'd cut open a pillow and refused to accept the easy answer. The sounds of combat intensified. More gunshots. She'd lost count now. A crash that sounded like furniture being overturned, shouting in voices she couldn't quite make out. Then, abruptly, silence. Maya's breath came in shallow gasps. The quiet was somehow worse than the chaos. It meant something had been decided. Someone had won. She just didn't know who. A knock on the panic room door made her jump so hard she dropped the phone. It clattered against the floor, the dispatcher's tinny voice calling out, Miss Raines, respond." "Maya, it's Reese, we're clear. You can open up." Maya didn't move. Every instinct screamed at her to verify, to confirm, to not trust anything. "What's the code word?" A pause. "We didn't establish one." "Yes, we did. You said it right before I locked the door." Another pause, longer this time. Maya's heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. "Nightingale," Reese's voice said. "The code word is Nightingale." Maya picked up the phone. "The agent outside says the code word is Nightingale. Is that correct?" "Do not open that door," the dispatcher said immediately. "Federal protocols require secondary verification. Keep the line open." "Miss Raines?" Reese's voice again, sharper now. "We need to move you. Backup's arriving and we need to clear the scene. Open the door." "Not until I get confirmation from federal response." "There's no time for..." "Then we wait." Maya's voice was firm despite the terror clawing at her throat. Something felt wrong. Reese had been calm and professional throughout this entire ordeal. The urgency in her voice now didn't match. Silence outside the door. Maya counted her heartbeats, 27 of them, before the dispatcher came back on the line. "Miss Raines, this is Deputy Director Matheson, Federal Response Command. Do not open that door. The agent outside is not Agent Reese." Maya's blood turned to ice. "How do you know?" "Agent Reese's tracker went offline 4 minutes ago. Same with Agent Santos. Your protection detail is down. The person outside that door is Marcus Drilling." The phone nearly slipped from Maya's nerveless fingers. She clamped her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. Outside, she heard footsteps pacing, the creak of floorboards under weight. "Maya," the voice that had claimed to be Reese said, dropping any pretense now. Male, rough with anger. "I know you're listening. I know you know it's me, so let's skip the games." Maya said nothing, barely breathed. "You cost me everything, my operation, my people, my reputation, 12 years of building something perfect, and you destroyed it in 3 days because you couldn't mind your own business." Drilling's voice was eerily calm, the kind of calm that came before violence. "I'm giving you one chance. Open the door, walk out. I'll make it quick." Still, she didn't respond. The dispatcher's voice whispered through the phone. "Federal units are 12 minutes out. Stay silent. Stay hidden." "You think that door will protect you?" Drilling continued. "You think I can't get through steel? I was military logistics for 20 years. I know every weakness in every system we use. That door has a pneumatic seal that relies on hydraulic pressure. Cut the pressure line, the seal fails. Give me 10 minutes, and I'm inside." Maya's eyes darted to the door frame, searching for the pressure line he'd mentioned. She didn't know enough about the system to know if he was bluffing. "Or," Drilling said, his tone shifting to something almost reasonable, "we can talk. You're clearly intelligent, resourceful. You saw what no one else saw. That's a valuable skill. I could use someone like you in my next venture." "He's trying to buy time," the dispatcher said quietly. "Our units are 11 minutes out. He needs to either get you out of there or escape before they arrive. Don't engage." But Maya found herself speaking anyway, her voice steadier than she expected. "There is no next venture. We have Reed, we have Colfax, we have financial records and phone logs and enough evidence to put you away for life." A low chuckle outside the door. "You think Colfax and Reed were the only ones? You think this operation started and ended at Silver Ridge?" The chuckle turned darker. "Oh, Maya, you haven't even scratched the surface. This network spans 6 states, 14 hospitals, personnel embedded at every level. You shut down one branch. The tree's still growing." Maya's stomach churned. "You're lying." "Am I? Ask yourself why federal response is taking so long. Ask yourself how I got your secure phone number, how I found this safe house, how I knew exactly which agents would be on your detail, and exactly when shift changes occurred." His voice dropped to something venomous. "Someone inside federal law enforcement is feeding me information, and they're still out there, still watching, still reporting." 10 minutes, the dispatcher said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "You don't have 10 minutes, Drilling said, as if he'd heard her. "You have 3. That's when the auxiliary power runs out, and this entire system goes dark. Then it's just you and me, and a steel door that won't hold forever." Maya looked at the emergency button on the wall, the one that would broadcast her location to every law enforcement agency with access to federal frequencies. If Drilling was telling the truth about having someone inside the system, pressing that button would tell his accomplice exactly where she was. If he was lying, not pressing it might mean missing her only chance to signal for help. 9 minutes, the dispatcher said. "Stay calm. We're almost there." Maya made a decision. She set the phone down carefully, keeping the line open, and moved to the emergency button. Her finger hovered over it. Then she heard something that made her freeze. A woman's voice, faint but audible, somewhere outside. "Federal agents! Drop your weapon!" Drilling swore, his footsteps retreating fast. Gunfire erupted, not the controlled shots from earlier, but a full firefight. Multiple weapons, shouting, the sound of doors being kicked in. The backup had arrived early. Maya grabbed the phone. "Federal units are engaging." "Confirmed," the dispatcher said, relief flooding her voice. "SWAT Team Alpha breached the perimeter. Stay locked down until they give all clear." The firefight lasted 90 seconds that felt like 90 years. Maya counted each shot, each shout, each crash of something being overturned. Then gradually, the chaos subsided. Authoritative voices calling out room clears, footsteps moving with purpose rather than panic. A knock on the panic room door. "Federal agent. Miss Raines, if you can hear me, we need verbal confirmation you're unharmed." Maya looked at the phone. The dispatcher nodded even though Maya couldn't see her. "They're legitimate. SWAT Team Alpha, led by Commander Patricia Voss. You can respond." "I'm okay," Maya called out, her voice cracking. "I'm not hurt." Outstanding. We're going to ask you 3 verification questions to confirm identity. What's your mother's maiden name? Brooks. What city were you born in? Portland, Maine. What's your employee number at Silver Ridge Medical Center? SC7743. A brief pause, then, identity confirmed. We're opening the door now. Stay calm and keep your hands visible. The locks disengaged with a series of mechanical clicks. The door swung open, revealing a woman in full tactical gear, weapon lowered but ready. Behind her, the safe house looked like a war zone. Overturned furniture, bullet holes in the walls, broken glass everywhere. 2 bodies lay covered with sheets near the entrance. Maya's stomach turned. "Agent Reese?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Commander Voss's expression softened fractionally. Agent Reese and Agent Santos were killed in initial contact. They held the line long enough for us to arrive. They died protecting you. The weight of those words crushed down on Maya like a physical thing. 2 people dead. 2 federal agents who'd been doing their jobs, protecting a witness, and they'd died because she'd cut open a pillow. "Where's Drilling?" she managed. "Escaped through the backwoods before we could close the perimeter. But he's injured. We found blood trail heading northeast. K9 units are tracking him now. He won't get far." Voss gestured toward the door. "We're evacuating you to a secure federal facility in D.C. More protections, better resources. You'll be safe there." Maya let herself be led outside, where 3 armored vehicles waited with engines running. The night air was cold and sharp, cutting through the shock that had kept her numb. She climbed into the middle vehicle, flanked by agents who didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, just did their jobs with grim efficiency. As they pulled away from the safe house, now a crime scene, cordoned off with yellow tape and crawling with federal investigators, Maya looked back. Red and blue lights strobed through the trees. Photographers documented angles. Evidence techs carefully bagged shell casings. And somewhere in those woods, Marcus Drilling was bleeding and running and planning his next move. The drive to D.C. took 4 hours. Maya dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sharp turn or sudden break. Dawn was breaking when they finally arrived at a federal building that looked like every other federal building, concrete and glass and security so tight you needed clearance just to breathe. They took her to the 8th floor, to a suite of rooms that were somehow both luxurious and sterile. Private bedroom, full kitchen, living area with bulletproof windows overlooking the city, and cameras. Everywhere, monitoring her every move. "You'll be debriefed in 2 hours," the lead agent told her. "Get some rest if you can. There's food in the kitchen, secure phone on the desk. Don't leave this floor without escort." Then they left her alone. Maya stood in the middle of the living area, staring at nothing. Her hands were shaking. Her legs felt unsteady. The adrenaline that had kept her functional for the past 12 hours was finally draining, leaving behind an exhaustion so profound she could barely stand. She made it to the bedroom, collapsed on the bed fully clothed, and was asleep before her head hit the pillow. She woke to her phone ringing. The secure phone, the one that only a handful of people had access to. Maya grabbed it, disoriented and groggy. "Hello? Maya, it's Lieutenant Hayes. Are you okay?" She sat up, running a hand through her tangled hair. "Physically, yes. I heard what happened. I'm sorry about Reese and Santos. They were good agents. They died because of me. They died doing their jobs. There's a difference." Hayes' voice was firm. "Don't take responsibility for Drilling's actions. That's on him, not you." Maya wanted to believe that, couldn't quite manage it. "Did you find him?" "Not yet. K9 units tracked him to a river 2 miles from the safe house. Trail went cold. We think he had an extraction vehicle staged, but he's hurt. Blood loss suggests a significant wound. He can't run forever." He said there were others, people inside the federal system feeding him information. Hayes was quiet for a moment. "I know. We're investigating that claim. But Maya, Drilling's a manipulator. He was trying to shake your confidence in your protection, make you doubt who you could trust." "What if he wasn't lying?" "Then we root them out too, one by one if we have to." Hayes exhaled. "I need you to come in for a full debrief. Walk us through everything that happened last night, everything Drilling said, every detail you remember. It might give us leads." "When?" "Now, if you're able. I'm outside your door." Maya disconnected and opened the door to find Hayes standing there with 2 other agents she didn't recognize. He He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Rumpled suit, dark circles under his eyes, jaw shadowed with stubble. "Let's talk," he said. They went to a conference room 3 doors down, windowless, soundproofed, equipped with recording devices and a one-way mirror. Maya sat across from Hayes while one agent operated the camera and the other took notes. "Start from when the power went out," Hayes said. "Tell me everything." So she did. Every detail, every sound, every word. Drilling had spoken through the panic room door. She recounted his claims about the network spanning multiple states, his assertion that someone in federal law enforcement was compromised, his offer to recruit her. Hayes listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. When she finished, he sat back and rubbed his eyes. "The multi-state claim checks out," he admitted. "After we arrested Colfax and Reed, we started tracing Drilling's financial network. We found payments to individuals at hospitals in Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina. We're bringing them in now, but it's a coordinated effort. Probably 20 people minimum involved in some capacity." Maya's stomach dropped. 20? At least, some knew exactly what they were facilitating. Others were like Reed, hired for small tasks without understanding the bigger picture. But the scope is bigger than we initially thought. And the federal informant? Hayes' jaw tightened. "We're investigating. I've pulled communication logs for everyone with access to your case file. If there's a leak, we'll find it." "What if you don't find it before Drilling makes another move?" "Then we operate under the assumption that everything is compromised and build a new security protocol from scratch." Hayes leaned forward. "Maya, I need to be honest with you. This case has gotten more complex and dangerous than anyone anticipated. You're not just a witness anymore. You're a symbol, the person who exposed a criminal network that's been operating for over a decade. That makes you valuable, yes, but it also makes you a target for everyone who benefited from that network." Maya felt ice spreading through her chest. "You're saying there are other people who want me dead?" "I'm saying we need to take enhanced precautions. The U.S., Marshals are taking over your protection. Witness security program, full WITSEC protocols, new identity, relocation, the works." "For how long?" "Until the trials are over and the network is fully dismantled. Minimum 18 months, possibly longer." 18 months of hiding, 18 months of being someone else. Maya thought about her apartment, her job, her life. Small and unremarkable though it had been, all of it gone. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "You always have a choice. But the alternative is staying exposed and hoping we catch everyone before they catch you." Hayes' expression softened. "You did the right thing, Maya. You saved Lena Carter. You exposed corruption and violence that had been hidden for years. The world is better because you refused to look away. But that doesn't mean the world will thank you for it." Maya nodded slowly. "When do I go into WITSEC?" 3 days. That gives us time to wrap up immediate debriefings and prepare your new identity." Hayes stood. "In the meantime, you stay here. No outside contact except approved calls. Marshals will brief you on protocols tomorrow." He left, taking the other agents with him. Maya sat alone in the conference room, staring at her reflection in the one-way mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, someone who'd stumbled into a conspiracy and come out the other side fundamentally changed. She'd been invisible her entire life. Now she'd never be invisible again. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out expecting Hayes with another question. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She opened the message with trembling fingers. "Clever girl surviving the safe house. But WITSEC won't protect you. New identity won't save you. I will find you wherever they hide you. This isn't over. Not until one of us is dead." Maya's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She forwarded the message to Hayes immediately, her pulse hammering in her temples. 3 minutes later, agents flooded into the conference room. Hayes' face was ashen. "How?" Maya demanded. "How does he keep getting these numbers?" Hayes stared at his tablet, at data streaming across the screen. The text was sent from inside this building, somewhere on the first 3 floors. The room went silent. "Lock it down," Hayes ordered. "No one in or out. Full sweep. Find me who sent that message." Agents scattered, but Maya felt the truth settling into her bones like ice. Drilling hadn't just built a network of hospital operatives. He'd built a network inside law enforcement, inside federal agencies. inside the very system that was supposed to protect her. And whoever that person was, they were in this building right now, watching, waiting, ready to tell Marcus Drilling exactly where to find her when the time was right. Hayes's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went from ashen to white. "We've got a problem," he said, looking at Maya. "The blood we tracked from the safe house? Forensics just ran it. It doesn't match Drilling's DNA profile for military records." Maya's mind raced. Then whose blood is it? "We don't know, but whoever Drilling shot at the safe house, it wasn't him." Hayes's voice dropped. "Which means Marcus Drilling was never there. Someone else attacked you. Someone else tried to get you to open that door." But the voice modulation technology, not even that sophisticated anymore. Whoever hit the safe house was playing a recording. Hayes pulled up security footage on his tablet. And while we were focused on the safe house attack, Drilling was here. In D.C., the text wasn't sent remotely, it was sent from a phone physically inside this building in the last 10 minutes. Maya's world tilted. "He's here, right now. Or his accomplice is." Hayes grabbed her arm. "We're moving you. New location, new team. Trust no one except me and the marshals. Understood?" But before they could move, the conference room door opened. A woman in a marshal's uniform stepped in, badge prominently displayed. "Maya Raines? I'm Marshal Davidson. I'm here to escort you to the secure vehicle." Hayes's hand moved toward his weapon. "I didn't request a marshal yet. Who authorized your presence?" Davidson smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "He did." And everything went to hell. Hayes's weapon cleared leather in half a second, aimed square at Davidson's chest. "Hands where I can see them. Now." Davidson didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just kept smiling that dead smile while her right hand stayed conspicuously near her sidearm. "You're making a mistake, Lieutenant. The mistake was yours, walking into a federal facility impersonating a marshal." Hayes's voice was granite. "There's no Davidson on the WITSEC roster for this case. I checked it myself an hour ago." "Then you checked wrong. Hands, now, or I drop you where you stand." For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Maya pressed herself against the wall, trying to become small and invisible again, trying to disappear into the institutional beige paint. The air in the conference room felt charged, electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Then Davidson's hand moved. Hayes fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space, the muzzle flash bright enough to leave after images. But Davidson was already diving sideways, impossibly fast, weapon coming up as she rolled behind the conference table. Return fire punched through the space where Hayes had been standing. He dropped flat, pulling Maya down with him. "Go," he shouted, shoving her toward the door. "Get to the stairwell. Don't stop for anything." Maya scrambled on hands and knees while bullets chewed through drywall above her head. She made it to the doorway, looked back once to see Hayes exchanging fire with Davidson, then forced herself to run. The hallway was chaos. Agents responding to gunfire, alarms blaring, people shouting conflicting orders. "Active shooter, 8th floor," someone yelled. Maya ran for the stairwell, her nursing shoes slapping against tile. Behind her, more gunfire. A scream, the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor. She didn't look back, couldn't afford to. Just pushed through the stairwell door and started down, taking stairs 2 at a time. She made it 3 floors before footsteps echoed above her. Multiple people, moving fast. She couldn't tell if they were friendlies or not, couldn't risk it. She kept going, lungs burning, legs screaming, until she burst out onto the 5th floor. Different layout here. Medical facilities, judging by the signs. She ducked into a corridor, pressing herself into a doorway alcove, trying to control her breathing. The footsteps in the stairwell past her floor, kept going down. Her phone buzzed. She yanked it out, expecting another threat from Drilling. "Hayes, Davidson down." But she wasn't alone. Building compromised. "Get to parking level B2 northwest corner, black SUV, plate number KTX4471. Keys under driver's mat. Go now." Maya didn't waste time questioning. She found another stairwell, this one mercifully empty, and descended into the building's guts. The parking levels were dimly lit, filled with the smell of exhaust and concrete. She emerged on B2, scanning for the northwest corner. The SUV sat exactly where Hayes said it would be, anonymous and dark. Maya found the keys, started the engine, and was pulling out when her rear-view mirror showed two security guards running toward her, weapons drawn. She floored it. The SUV's engine roared, tires screeching as she accelerated toward the exit ramp. Behind her, the guards were shouting, one raising his weapon. She ducked instinctively as a shot pinged off the rear window, bulletproof glass, thank whatever Providence was watching over her, and then she was on the ramp, spiraling up toward street level. She burst out onto the street into mid-morning traffic, horns blaring as she cut off a taxi. The driver screamed obscenities. Maya kept going, weaving through lanes, putting distance between herself and the federal building that had become a war zone. Her phone rang. Hayes. Are you clear? I think so. I'm heading west on Constitution Avenue. 2 guards tried to stop me. Those weren't guards. That was Drilling's people. The entire security roster on the lower levels was replaced overnight with contractors. Hayes' voice was tight with controlled fury. Someone with serious pull arranged this. We're talking federal-level access, maybe higher. Maya's hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. What do I do? Keep driving. I'm sending you coordinates for a meet point. Somewhere public. Lots of witnesses. Hard to stage an attack without drawing attention. 20 minutes. Can you make it? I'll make it. The coordinates came through. The National Gallery of Art, East Entrance. Maya programmed them into the SUV's GPS and tried to blend into traffic. Every car behind her looked suspicious. Every pedestrian on the sidewalk seemed to be watching. Paranoia clawed at the edges of her mind, but she forced it down. Stay calm. Stay focused. Survive the next 20 minutes. She made it to the gallery in 18, parked 2 blocks away, and approached on foot. The morning crowd was thick. Tourists with cameras, school groups, art students sketching on the steps. Maya pulled her jacket tighter and kept her head down, scanning faces for threats. Hayes found her near the fountain. He looked worse than before, blood on his sleeve, a cut above his left eye, moving with the careful stiffness of someone hiding an injury. You're hurt, Maya said. Davidson got a shot off before I dropped her. Grazed my ribs. I'll live. He steered her toward a bench with clear sight lines in all directions. We've got a bigger problem. Davidson's phone had encrypted communications going back 6 months. Coordination with Drilling, yes, but also with someone else. Someone higher up the chain. Who? We're still decrypting, but the signature suggests DOJ, maybe FBI. Someone with access to witness protection protocols, safe house locations, security clearances. Hayes pulled out his tablet, showing her fragments of decoded messages. They've been feeding Drilling everything, every move we made, every location we secured, every agent assigned to your protection. Maya felt sick. Reese and Santos walked into a trap because someone told Drilling exactly when and where they'd be vulnerable. Hayes' voice was raw. We have a high-level mole, Maya, and until we identify them, nowhere in the federal system is safe for you. Then what do I do? Where do I go? Hayes met her eyes. Somewhere they won't think to look. Somewhere off-grid, outside federal protocols. He handed her a phone, not the secure one, just a basic flip phone. Burner, untraceable. 1 number programmed in, Colonel Carter. He's offering you protection under military authority. Separate chain of command, separate security apparatus. The mole won't have access. Maya looked at the phone. You're sure? I'm not sure of anything anymore except that keeping you in federal custody is a death sentence. Hayes stood, wincing. Carter's sending a team to extract you. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Stay public until they arrive. Don't go anywhere isolated. What about you? I'm going hunting. Someone inside my agency betrayed 2 good agents and tried to kill you. I'm going to find them. He started to walk away, then turned back. Maya, what you did, cutting open that pillow, refusing to let Lena Carter be dismissed, that took guts most people don't have. Don't let these bastards make you regret it. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Maya sat on the bench, clutching the burner phone, watching tourists feed pigeons and children chase each other around the fountain. Normal life continuing like the world wasn't falling apart around her. She checked the time. 8 minutes until extraction. A man sat down beside her, older gray beard wearing a windbreaker and baseball cap. Tourist, probably. She tensed anyway. Nice day, the man said conversationally. Maya didn't respond. I said nice day. His tone sharpened. You should acknowledge me, Miss Rains. It's polite. Her blood went cold. She started to stand, but his hand clamped down on her wrist. Gentle pressure, but unmistakably restraining. Don't make a scene, he said quietly. I'm not here to hurt you, just to talk. Who are you? Someone who's been watching this situation unfold with great interest. He released her wrist but didn't move away. You've caused quite a disruption, Miss Rains. Exposed a very lucrative operation. Made powerful people very nervous. I exposed torture. You exposed a business, one that provided a service to people with resources and grievances. A service that filled a gap the legal system couldn't address. His tone was almost philosophical. What Marcus Drilling built wasn't violence for violence's sake. It was justice for hire, precision revenge. And you dismantled it. Maya's mind raced. This wasn't drilling, wrong voice, wrong age, wrong everything. Who are you? She repeated. Think of me as an interested party, someone who had significant investment in Drilling's network, someone who's now facing considerable financial and legal exposure because you decided to play hero. He turned to look at her directly, and his eyes were cold. I'm offering you a choice. Walk away. Disappear. We'll arrange it. New identity, new life. Very comfortable. All you have to do is refuse to testify at trial. That's your offer? Let the people who tortured Lena Carter walk free. Those people are already in custody. They'll face consequences. But the network, the infrastructure, the other operations, that can continue if you step aside. Maya laughed, bitter and sharp. You actually think I'd agree to that? I think you're intelligent enough to recognize when you're outmatched. We have people at every level of government, law enforcement, intelligence, even military, though Carter doesn't know it yet. He leaned closer. You can fight us and die, probably within the week, or you can take the deal and live. Those are your only options. There's a third option. Oh? I keep fighting until all of you are in prison. The man smiled, genuinely amused. Admirable. Foolish, but admirable. He stood, adjusting his cap. I'll give you 24 hours to reconsider. After that, the offer expires and you become a liability to be eliminated rather than an asset to be managed. Think carefully, Miss Rains. He walked away, merging into the crowd and disappearing before Maya could react. Her hands were shaking. She pulled out the burner phone and dialed the only number programmed in. Colonel Carter answered on the first ring. Miss Rains? Someone just approached me, offered me money to disappear and not testify. Said they have people everywhere, including military. Carter's voice went hard. Describe him. She did. The gray beard, the windbreaker, the cold eyes, every detail she could remember. I know who that is, Carter said after a moment. Or at least I know the type. Corporate security consultant, probably former intelligence. The kind of man who brokers deals between people with problems and people who solve them. Did he give a name? No. Smart. But if he's showing his face, it means they're desperate. She heard movement on Carter's end, engines starting, voices coordinating. My team's 2 minutes out. Stay visible. Stay public. Don't go anywhere alone. He said they have people in the military. They might, but they don't have me. And right now you're under my protection. Anyone who wants to get to you goes through me first. Carter's tone softened fractionally. You saved my daughter, Miss Rains. I don't abandon debts. Hold on 2 more minutes. The line stayed open. Maya heard tactical coordination in the background, Carter giving orders, vehicles moving into position, a military operation unfolding in real time. She scanned the crowd, looking for threats, for watchers, for anyone who seemed too interested in a woman sitting alone on a bench. A black military vehicle pulled up to the curb, doors opening. 2 soldiers in civilian clothes stepped out, moving with the efficiency of spec ops operators. One approached Maya, while the other scanned the perimeter. Miss Rains, Colonel Carter sent us. We're extracting you now. She stood, legs unsteady. Where are we going? Secure military installation, full lockdown, no civilian access. You'll be safe there while we clean up this mess. The soldier gestured toward the vehicle. We need to move. Maya climbed into the back seat. The doors locked with heavy thunks. The vehicle pulled away from the curb, smoothly merging into traffic. She looked out the tinted windows at the National Gallery receding behind them, at the tourists and school groups going about their day, oblivious to the war being fought in the shadows around them. The drive took 40 minutes, ending at a military base whose name she wasn't told. They processed her through security, took her biometrics, issued her a temporary ID badge. Everything moved with military precision. No wasted time, no unnecessary conversation, just efficient professionalism. They brought her to a private room in what looked like officers' quarters. Clean, Spartan, secure. A soldier stood outside her door. Another patrolled the hallway. She was protected. She was also, effectively, imprisoned. Colonel Carter arrived an hour later. He looked tired but controlled, his uniform crisp despite obvious signs of stress. "How are you holding up?" he asked. Maya gestured around the room. "I've been in worse places. I heard about what happened at the federal building. Lieutenant Hayes briefed me." Carter sat in the single chair, leaving her the bed. "We're coordinating with federal authorities, but we're also conducting our own parallel investigation. If there's a mole in their system, we'll find them through our channels." "The man at the gallery said they have people in the military too." "Possible. But the military's chain of command is different from civilian law enforcement. Harder to penetrate, easier to audit, less room for lone wolves. If we have a compromised officer, we'll root them out." He pulled out a tablet. "I need you to tell me everything that man said. Every word you can remember." So she did, recounting the conversation in as much detail as she could summon. Carter listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes, his expression growing darker as she described the offer and the threats. When she finished, he sat back. "They're more afraid of you than I thought. That's good." "How is that good?" "Because fear makes people sloppy. They're exposing themselves, making direct contact, showing their hand. That gives us opportunities." Carter zoomed in on a section of his notes. "The fact that they offered you a deal means they think you can be bought or scared off, which means they're not confident they can eliminate you cleanly. So what do? We use that uncertainty against them. We let them think you're considering the offer while we build an airtight case. We document everything, secure testimony from everyone we've arrested, trace financial networks, identify every person who benefited from drilling's operations." Carter looked up. "And when we're ready, we bring the whole thing down publicly. No quiet plea deals, no sealed records. Full exposure." Maya felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. For weeks, she'd been running, hiding, reacting. Finally, someone was talking about taking the fight to the enemy. How long will that take? Days, not weeks. We've already got Drilling's financial records from his cabin. We have Reed and Colfax's testimony. We have Davidson's encrypted communications. The pieces are there. We just need to connect them and build a prosecutable case. A knock on the door interrupted them. A young lieutenant entered, saluted Carter, and handed him a folder. "Sir, the forensics report you requested." Carter opened it, read quickly, and his expression went from grim to something darker. "The blood from the safe house, we got DNA results back. It matches a federal agent named Thomas Keller. Disappeared 3 days ago. Body was found this morning in a drainage ditch outside Baltimore." Maya's stomach churned. "They killed one of their own?" "Drilling used Keller to stage the safe house attack. Killed him when he was no longer useful. This operation is cleaning up loose ends." Carter closed the folder. "Which means we need to move faster. If they're eliminating their own people, they won't hesitate to come after witnesses." "I thought you said I was safe here." "You are. But Lena isn't." Carter's jaw tightened. "She's been staying at my residence under guard. But if they know my connection to you, they might try to leverage her again. I need to move her somewhere more secure." "Where?" "Here. Same facility, separate quarters. Between her case and yours, we'll build something they can't ignore or suppress." He stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we start fighting back." But Maya couldn't rest. She paced the small room, mind churning through everything that had happened. A month ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was at the center of a conspiracy that reached into federal law enforcement and maybe higher. People had died protecting her. More would die if she didn't see this through. Her burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't open it, almost threw the phone across the room and let someone else deal with the threats. But something made her look. A photo. Grainy surveillance image of Lena Carter walking out of her father's residence, flanked by security guards. Then a text. Last chance, take the deal or she pays for your stubbornness. You have 12 hours. Maya's hands shook so badly she dropped the phone. She picked it up, took a screenshot, and forwarded it to Colonel Carter immediately. Then she called him. They're threatening Lena. I see it. Carter's voice was tight with controlled rage. I'm moving her now. Full tactical team, military convoy, the works. They won't get near her. You can't protect everyone forever. They'll find an opening eventually. Then we close this before they get the chance. Carter paused. Maya, I need to ask you something. Are you willing to testify publicly? Full deposition, televised trial, everything exposed? Because if you are, we can accelerate this timeline. Bring charges within 48 hours. Make this so public they can't bury it. Maya thought about Lena screaming in room 712, about Reese and Santos dying to protect her, about every victim in Drilling's network who'd suffered in silence because someone decided their pain wasn't real. Yes, I'll testify. Then we start tomorrow. Full disclosure. Every document, every communication, every name. We burn it all down. The next morning, Maya was escorted to a secure conference facility inside the base. The room was filled with people. Federal prosecutors, military JAG officers, FBI agents who'd been vetted and cleared, stenographers, video equipment. This was it. The moment where everything either came together or fell apart. She sat at a table facing a panel of attorneys and began her testimony. She started with Lena Carter's screams and worked forward chronologically. Her observations, her decision to cut open the pillow. The discovery of the nails, every arrest and revelation since. She spoke for 4 hours with only brief breaks for water. The attorneys asked pointed questions, clarifying details, establishing timeline, building a prosecutable narrative. Maya answered each one, her voice steady despite exhaustion. When she finished, the lead prosecutor, a woman named Sandra Hoffman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes, nodded approvingly. This is excellent testimony, Miss Raines. Combined with the physical evidence and financial records, we have enough to bring federal RICO charges against everyone involved in the network. We're talking conspiracy, fraud, assault, maybe murder for Agent Keller. How fast can you move? Colonel Carter asked from his position near the wall. Arraignments can happen within 72 hours if we push. Trials will take longer, months probably, but we can get indictments immediately. Do it, and make it public. I want media present. I want this on every news channel. Hoffman smiled thinly. That can be arranged. Over the next 48 hours, Maya watched the machinery of justice grind into motion with terrifying speed. Federal indictments were unsealed. Arrest warrants were executed across 6 states. News broke on every major network. A criminal conspiracy spanning multiple hospitals, federal corruption, a brave nurse who'd exposed it all. Maya watched the coverage from her secure room, feeling surreal as her own face appeared on screen. They'd used her nursing school graduation photo, younger, more hopeful, completely unprepared for what was coming. The talking heads debated whether she was a hero or a troublemaker. Half the commentators praised her courage. The other half questioned why she'd gone outside normal channels. Maya stopped watching after the 3rd segment. On the 3rd day, Colonel Carter brought news. We arrested 6 more operatives this morning. The network's collapsing. People are turning on each other, offering deals, providing testimony. And we found the mole. Maya looked up sharply. Who? Deputy Director Lawrence Kemp, FBI. 23 years with the Bureau, impeccable record, access to everything. He'd been feeding Drilling information for 18 months in exchange for cash payments and favors. Carter's expression was grim. He's the one who authorized Davidson's access to the federal building. He's the one who leaked safe house locations. All of it. Is he in custody? As of 2 hours ago. He tried to run. Marshals picked him up at Dulles trying to board a flight to Rio. Carter sat down across from her. It's over, Maya. The network's broken. Drilling's still at large, but he's isolated now. No resources, no support. He'll surface eventually, and when he does, we'll be ready. Maya wanted to feel relief. Instead, she felt hollow. What about the man at the gallery? The one who offered me the deal? Still working on identifying him, but without Kemp feeding him information, he's lost his edge. We'll find him too. That night, Maya finally slept deeply for the first time in weeks. No nightmares, no jolting awake at every sound, just dreamless, exhausted sleep. She woke to her phone ringing. Colonel Carter. Turn on the news. She found the remote. Flipped to CNN. Breaking news banner. Marcus Drilling apprehended. Footage showed a disheveled man being led out of a motel in Virginia, hands cuffed, head down. He looked smaller than Maya had imagined, less monstrous, just a bitter man who'd let hatred consume him until there was nothing left. Where did they find him? She asked. Hiding in a roadside motel 30 miles from D.C., out of money, out of options. A housekeeper recognized him from news coverage and called it in. Carter sounded satisfied. He's being transported to federal detention now. He'll be arraigned tomorrow. I want to be there. Are you sure? You don't have to see him. Yes, I do. The arraignment happened in a federal courthouse with security so tight, Maya had to pass through 3 separate checkpoints. She sat in the gallery beside Colonel Carter and Lena, who'd insisted on attending despite her father's protests. When Drilling was brought in, the courtroom went silent. He looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, moving with the shuffle of someone broken. He didn't look at the gallery, didn't look at anyone, just stared at the floor while the judge read the charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy, assault, fraud. The list went on for 5 minutes. How does the defendant plead, Waneds? The judge asked. Drilling's public defender started to speak, but Drilling cut him off. Guilty. To all of it. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge raised an eyebrow. Mr. Drilling, do you understand? I understand. I'm guilty. I did everything they say I did and more. I tortured that girl because I wanted her father to suffer. I built a network to help other people do the same. I corrupted federal agents and medical personnel. I'm guilty. His voice was flat, emotionless. I just want it over. The judge exchanged glances with the prosecutors. Very well. Given the defendant's plea, we'll move directly to sentencing. Bailiff, remand the defendant into custody pending sentencing hearing. As guards led Drilling away, he finally looked up, scanning the gallery. His eyes found Maya. For a moment, they just stared at each other. The man who'd tried to kill her, the woman who'd destroyed everything he'd built. Then Drilling smiled, cold and bitter. It doesn't matter, he said, loud enough to carry. You think this ends with me? You think I was the top? I was middle management. The real architects are still out there. And they're coming for you. Remove the defendant, the judge ordered sharply. Guards dragged Drilling out while he laughed, unhinged, broken laughter that echoed in the courtroom long after he was gone. Maya sat frozen, his words echoing in her mind. The real architects are still out there. Colonel Carter leaned close. He's trying to get in your head. Don't let him. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Drilling had told the truth, because somewhere, someone was watching the news coverage of his arrest. Someone who'd built the network Drilling had run. Someone who knew Maya Raines was the only person left who could expose them, and they were already planning their next move. The courtroom emptied slowly, spectators filing out with the hushed voices of people who'd witnessed something disturbing. Maya stayed in her seat, Drilling's laughter still ringing in her ears. Colonel Carter's hand on her shoulder felt distant, disconnected from the cold certainty spreading through her chest. He's lying, Carter said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, he's not. Maya stood, her legs steadier than she expected. Everything about this case has been too organized, too protected. Drilling was military logistics. Colfax was a doctor. Reed was a contractor. None of them had the kind of reach needed to corrupt federal agents and build a 6-state operation. Lena, who'd been silent throughout the arraignment, spoke up. So what do? We find whoever's really running this. Maya looked at Carter. Drilling said he was middle management. That means someone hired him, someone paid him, someone built the infrastructure he used. Carter's jaw tightened. The financial records we seized from his cabin, we've been assuming Drilling was the top of the pyramid. But what if those payments were going both ways? What if he was receiving orders and funding from someone above him? We need to re-examine everything, not as an endpoint, but as a trail leading higher. They reconvened in a secure conference room at the military base 3 hours later. Lieutenant Hayes joined them, looking exhausted but determined. He'd been working nonstop since the federal building attack, coordinating with prosecutors and running down leads. I pulled Drilling's complete financial history, Hayes said, spreading documents across the table, going back 15 years. And you're right, there's a pattern. Large deposits from offshore accounts, always timed to precede major operations. The deposits stopped 2 years ago, replaced by cryptocurrency transfers. Can you trace the crypto? Carter asked. Partially. It's been laundered through multiple wallets, but our forensic accountants found a terminal point, a corporation registered in Delaware, MedSafe Solutions, Inc. They provide risk management consulting to hospitals and healthcare systems. Maya's pulse quickened. What kind of risk management? Hayes pulled up the company website on his laptop. Security assessments, liability consulting, patient safety protocols. They contract with over 60 hospitals nationwide, including Silver Ridge. The room went silent. They had legitimate access, Maya said slowly, pieces clicking together. They could walk into any hospital on their client list, review security systems, examine patient records, all under the guise of consulting work. And identify vulnerable targets, Carter added. People with powerful enemies. People whose suffering could be monetized. Hayes scrolled through MedSafe's corporate filings. The company is owned by a holding group, which is owned by another holding group, layered so deep it'd take months to unravel. But I found one name that appears on multiple boards. He pulled up a photo. The man from the National Gallery, gray beard, cold eyes, looking younger in the photo, but unmistakably the same person. Dr. Victor Harwell, Hayes read, former surgeon, former hospital administrator, currently CEO of Health First Innovations, the parent company that owns MedSafe Solutions. He's also on the boards of 3 major hospital networks, 2 medical device companies, and a pharmaceutical distributor. Maya stared at the photo, remembering his calm voice offering her money to disappear. He's not just protecting the network, he created it. And he's incredibly well connected. Hayes pulled up more files. Political donations to both parties. Charitable foundations. Speaking engagements at medical conferences. The man's a pillar of the healthcare community, which makes him almost untouchable, Carter said grimly. We can't just arrest someone at his level without ironclad evidence. He'll have lawyers that'll tie us up for years. Then we get that evidence. Maya looked at Hayes. Drilling's pleading guilty. Can we use that? Get him to testify against Harwell in exchange for a reduced sentence? Hayes shook his head. His public defender already filed paperwork withdrawing the guilty plea. Claims Drilling was emotionally compromised, not thinking clearly. They're going to fight every charge. Because Harwell got to him. Lena's voice was quiet but certain. Promised him something if he keeps his mouth shut. Or threatened him with something worse if he talks, Carter added. Maya stood, pacing the small room. We need someone on the inside, someone Harwell trusts who can get us documentation, recordings, proof of his involvement. Everyone on the inside is either loyal to him or terrified of him, Hayes said. We've interviewed 20 people from MedSafe Solutions. They all lawyer up immediately. None of them will flip. What about the man who approached me at the gallery? He works for Harwell, doesn't he? Can we identify him? Bring him in? Hayes pulled up surveillance footage from the National Gallery. We've been trying, but he knew where every camera was, kept his face obscured. We got height and build, but that's not enough for an arrest warrant. The room fell into frustrated silence. They had the thread, but couldn't pull it tight enough to unravel Harwell's carefully constructed empire. Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her look. A video file. She hesitated, then opened it. The video showed a hospital room, not Silver Ridge, somewhere else. A man in his 40s lying in a bed, clearly in pain, a nurse adjusting his pillow. The timestamp was from 4 years ago. Then the nurse left, and another person entered, dressed in hospital scrubs, face obscured by a surgical mask, but the body language was unmistakably deliberate. The person adjusted something inside the pillow, then exited. 3 hours later, according to the timestamp, the patient was seizing, code blue, crash cart, frantic attempts at resuscitation. He died. Maya's hand shook. She showed the video to the others. Where did this come from? Carter demanded. I don't know. Unknown number. Maya played it again, studying every frame. But someone's sending us evidence, someone who wants Harwell exposed. Hayes was already running the video through analysis software. The metadata's been stripped, but I can try to identify the hospital from architectural details. Give me an hour. While Hayes worked, Maya stared at the video on loop. The deliberate way the masked person had moved. The calculated timing. This wasn't improvisation. This was practiced, refined, the work of someone who'd done it many times before. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Conference Room B, Silver Ridge Medical Center, tonight at 11 p.m. Come alone. I have more. Maya showed it to Carter. It's a trap. Obviously. But might be our only chance to identify who's helping us. Or who's setting us up to be killed. Carter studied the message. We can't send you in alone, but we can send you with backup they won't see. Wire you, put surveillance teams in position, tactical units standing by. If it's legitimate, we get evidence. If it's a trap, we spring it on our terms. Hayes looked up from his laptop. I identified the hospital in the video. Sacred Heart in Baltimore. The patient was Robert Thornton, age 42, died of what was ruled cardiac arrest. But his family filed a wrongful death lawsuit claiming medical negligence. The suit was settled quietly for an undisclosed amount. Who represented the hospital? Maya asked. MedSafe Solutions handled the risk management assessment after his death. Recommended the settlement to avoid publicity. Hayes pulled up more records. And Victor Harwell personally signed off on the report. He cleaned up his own crime, Lena said, her voice tight with anger. We can't prove it was a crime based on grainy surveillance footage, Carter said. But if we can get whoever sent this video to testify, give us originals, provide context, that's a different story. Maya looked at the message again. 11 p.m., 4 hours away. I'll go. Absolutely not, Carter said immediately. You just said we need evidence. Someone's offering it to us. I have to take that chance. I'll go, Hayes volunteered. I can pose as you, similar build. They're expecting me specifically. If someone else shows up, they'll bolt. Maya met Carter's eyes. You said you'd protect me. So protect me. Wire me up, surround the building, but let me be the one who walks into that room. Carter looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. Tactical teams, snipers, surveillance, and the second it feels wrong, you abort. Understood? Understood. The next 3 hours were spent in preparation. Maya was fitted with a wire so sophisticated it was nearly invisible. Tactical units positioned themselves around Silver Ridge Medical Center. Snipers took positions on adjacent buildings. Hayes set up a mobile command center in an unmarked van 3 blocks away. At 10:40 p.m., Maya walked into Silver Ridge for the first time since being evacuated weeks ago. The building felt different now, haunted by everything that had happened within its walls. She took the elevator to the second floor, where Conference Room B sat dark and empty at the end of a corridor. She pushed open the door. The room was lit only by emergency lighting, casting everything in dim shadows. A figure stood by the window, back to her. Thank you for coming, Miss Raines. Maya's breath caught. She knew that voice. Karen? Her former supervisor turned around. Karen Voss looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past month. Dark circles under her eyes, hands trembling, posture defeated. I'm sorry, Karen said, for doubting you, for not seeing what was happening, for being part of it. Maya's mind raced. You worked for Harwell? Not directly. I didn't even know his name until last week. But MedSafe Solutions approached me 2 years ago. They said they were conducting efficiency studies, needed access to patient records and staffing schedules. They paid me $20,000 to provide monthly reports. I thought it was legitimate consulting work. But it wasn't. No. They were identifying targets, patients with wealthy families, complicated medical situations, people who'd be believed if they were labeled as difficult or psychological. Karen's voice cracked. I gave them Lena Carter's information. I flagged her file when she was admitted. I didn't know what they were planning, but I knew something was wrong and I ignored it because I needed the money. You're the inside contact, Maya said, pieces falling into place. You're who they used to coordinate everything. Yes, and when you started asking questions, I reported it to them. I told them you were getting suspicious. I'm the reason they escalated, the reason they tried to silence you. Karen pulled an envelope from her pocket. I have records of every report I sent, every payment I received, communications with my handler, a man who called himself Smith, but who I later identified as Victor Harwell's personal assistant, bank records, everything. She held out the envelope. Maya didn't take it. Why now? Why come forward? Because Agents Reese and Santos died. Because I realized people weren't just suffering, they were dying. Because I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize who I'd become. Karen's eyes glistened with tears. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure Harwell pays for it. You could have sent this to the FBI, to prosecutors. Why bring me here? Because you're the only person I trust to see this through. Everyone else can be bought or intimidated. But you? Karen laughed bitterly. You cut open a pillow on instinct. You took on the entire system. You don't quit. Maya took the envelope. This information could save you from prosecution. Why give it to me? I don't want to be saved. I want to do one right thing before this is over. Karen moved toward the door. There's more. Video files, encrypted communications, financial records. Everything's on a secure server. The access codes are in that envelope. Use them. Destroy Harwell. Karen, don't thank me. Just finish it. Karen walked out, leaving Maya alone in the conference room with an envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She opened it. Inside were USB drives, printed bank statements, handwritten notes, and a page of access codes. This was it. The evidence they needed to connect Harwell directly to the conspiracy. Hayes' voice crackled through her earpiece. Maya, we've got movement outside. 3 vehicles approaching the hospital, federal plates, but we can't confirm legitimacy. You need to exit now. Maya grabbed the envelope and ran. She made it to the stairwell as the elevator dinged behind her. Footsteps echoed, multiple people, moving fast. She descended quickly, emerging on the ground floor and heading for the rear exit where Carter's team was positioned. A man stepped into her path. Gray beard, cold eyes. Victor Harwell in the flesh. Miss Raines, we really must stop meeting like this. Maya backed up, her hand clutching the envelope. You're too late. I have everything. Karen gave me everything. Karen Voss is emotionally unstable and facing federal charges. Nothing she provides will be admissible in court. It's fruit of a poisoned tree. Harwell smiled pleasantly. But I appreciate her bringing you here. Saves me the trouble of hunting you down. The stairwell door burst open. Not Harwell's people. Colonel Carter and 4 soldiers in tactical gear, weapons raised. Step away from her, Carter ordered. Harwell didn't move. I'm unarmed. I'm simply having a conversation with Miss Raines. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and about 30 other charges we're still compiling. Carter nodded to his soldiers, who moved to cuff Harwell. Harwell laughed, genuinely amused. You can't arrest me? I'm a civilian, and you have no jurisdiction. Federal marshals are en route to take custody, Hayes said, emerging from another corridor. But we'll hold you until they arrive. As soldiers restrained Harwell, his expression never changed, calm, confident, unbothered. This is harassment. My attorneys will have me released within hours, and then I'll sue you, Colonel Carter, and everyone involved in this farce until there's nothing left. Good luck with that, Maya said quietly. She held up the envelope. I have documentation of every crime you committed, every payment, every victim. Karen Voss gave me access to your entire operation. For the first time, Harwell's composure cracked, just slightly, a tightening around his eyes. Whatever she gave you is worthless. She's a disgraced employee facing prison. Her testimony means nothing. Then you won't mind if we verify that in court. Carter gestured to his soldiers. Take him. Sus. As they led Harwell away, he looked back at Maya. You've made powerful enemies, Miss Raines. This doesn't end with me. Actually, Maya said, it does. Over the next 72 hours, the case against Victor Harwell exploded into public consciousness. Federal prosecutors filed charges based on Karen's evidence combined with financial records Hayes' team had uncovered. The charges ran to 47 pages: conspiracy, murder for hire, fraud, corruption, obstruction of justice. MedSafe Solutions was raided, servers were seized, 23 employees were arrested. The company's clients, over 60 hospitals nationwide, launched internal investigations. 3 hospital administrators resigned. 5 more were placed on leave pending review. And the victims started coming forward. 17 families who'd lost loved ones under suspicious circumstances. 32 patients who'd suffered unexplained complications. People who'd been dismissed as difficult, psychological, drug-seeking, people whose pain had been weaponized for profit. Maya testified before a grand jury for 6 hours, walking them through everything from Lena Carter's screams to Karen Voss's confession. The grand jury indicted Harwell on all counts. Bail was denied. Trial was set for 4 months out. The media coverage was relentless. Maya's face was everywhere: news shows, magazine covers, online articles. Some praised her as a hero who'd exposed systemic corruption. Others questioned why she'd operated outside official channels, suggested she'd been reckless, implied she was seeking attention. Maya stopped reading the coverage after the first week. Other people's opinions didn't change what had happened or what needed to happen next. 6 weeks after Harwell's arrest, Maya received a call from Lena Carter. "Can we meet? Just the two of us?" They met at a coffee shop nowhere near Silver Ridge, somewhere neutral and public. Lena looked healthy, color in her cheeks, light in her eyes, no shadows of the trauma that had consumed her. "How are you?" Maya asked. "Better. Therapy helps. So does knowing the people who did this are facing consequences." Lena stirred her coffee absently. "I wanted to thank you, properly, for seeing me when everyone else looked away. I just paid attention." "You did more than that. You put yourself at risk. You lost agents protecting you, lost your job, got death threats, all because you refused to let my pain be dismissed." Lena's voice was steady but emotional. "I'll never forget that." Maya didn't know what to say. She'd acted on instinct, done what felt right in the moment. The idea that it deserved thanks felt strange. "What will you do now?" Lena asked. "After the trial?" "I don't know. Silver Ridge terminated my employment, said I violated protocols by destroying hospital property without authorization. Other hospitals won't touch me because I'm too controversial. I might have ended my nursing career along with Harwell's conspiracy." "Or you started something new?" Lena pulled out a folder. "My father and I have been talking. We want to establish a foundation, patient advocacy, investigating suspicious medical cases, supporting people whose pain isn't being taken seriously. We want you to run it." Maya stared at the folder. "I'm not qualified to run a foundation." "You're uniquely qualified. You understand what patients go through when systems fail them. You know how to spot patterns everyone else misses. And you don't quit when people tell you to." Lena pushed the folder across the table. "Read it. Think about it. But we need someone like you leading this, someone who gives a damn." Maya opened the folder. Mission statement, funding structure, proposed programs. It was comprehensive, professional, real. "I'll think about it," she said. 2 months later, Victor Harwell's trial began. The courthouse was mobbed. Media, victims' families, protesters both supporting and condemning the prosecution. Maya sat in the front row of the gallery, flanked by Colonel Carter and Lena. Lieutenant Hayes testified for 3 days, walking the jury through financial records and encrypted communications. Karen Voss testified for 2 days, her voice breaking as she described her role in the conspiracy. 17 victims or their families testified about loved ones who died or suffered, and Maya testified for 4 days straight. She started with the screams in room 712 and walked the jury through every detail: the pattern of pain, the dismissive doctors, the decision to cut open the pillow, the nails inside, the investigation that followed. She explained how the conspiracy had worked, how Harwell had built and protected it, how people had died to keep it hidden. Harwell's attorneys tried to discredit her, suggested she was attention-seeking, questioned her credentials, implied she'd violated patient privacy. But Maya didn't break. She answered every question calmly, precisely, backed by documentation and physical evidence. The trial lasted 7 weeks. The jury deliberated for 14 hours. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Victims' families wept. Media rushed to file stories. Harwell sat motionless, his face blank, as the judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks out. Maya walked out of the courthouse into a wall of cameras and questions. She ignored them all, just kept walking until she found a quiet bench 3 blocks away. Her phone rang. Colonel Carter. "You did it." "We did it," Maya corrected. "All of us." "What happens now?" Maya thought about Lena's offer, about the foundation, about all the people out there still suffering in silence, still being dismissed, still waiting for someone to believe them. Now we make sure this never happens again. 6 months after the trial, the Carter Patient Advocacy Foundation opened its doors in a renovated office building downtown. Maya sat at her desk on the first day, staring at the nameplate someone had put there, Maya Raines, Executive Director. The phone rang within the first hour. A woman whose husband had died under suspicious circumstances at a hospital in Ohio. She'd been told it was a heart attack, but something felt wrong. The doctors wouldn't listen. The hospital was stonewalling. "Can you help me?" the woman asked. Maya pulled out a notepad. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." And she listened. Because that's what she did. That's what she'd always done. See the patterns. Refuse the easy answers. Believe people when they said something was wrong. Over the next year, the foundation investigated 43 cases. They found medical negligence in 18, criminal activity in 7. And in 12 cases, they discovered evidence of ongoing operations similar to Harwell's network, smaller, less sophisticated, but just as predatory. Each discovery led to arrests, to hospital reforms, to victims finding justice. And Maya led it all, the invisible nurse who'd become impossible to ignore. Victor Harwell was sentenced to 47 years in federal prison. Marcus Drilling received 32 years. Dr. Raymond Colfax got 20 years and lost his medical license. Tomas Reed cooperated fully and received 8 years. Karen Voss received 5 years and permanent revocation of her nursing license, but Maya visited her in prison twice a year. Redemption was possible, forgiveness was harder. But Karen was trying. On the anniversary of Lena Carter's final night screaming in room 712, Maya received a package. Inside was a framed photo, Lena crossing the finish line, marching at a marathon, arms raised in triumph, grinning at the camera. On the back, a note. "I run because I can, because you made sure I'd have the chance. Thank you for seeing me." Lena Maya hung the photo on her office wall, next to commendations from victim families and letters from patients whose cases the foundation had helped solve. Her phone rang. Another case. Another person whose pain wasn't being taken seriously. Another chance to look closer, to listen harder, to refuse the comfortable lie that everything was fine. Maya picked up the phone. "This is the Carter Foundation. How can I help?" Because some people spent their lives being invisible, dismissed, told their experiences didn't matter. And some people spent their lives making sure those voices were finally heard. Maya Raines had been underestimated her entire career, overlooked, treated like furniture in hallways where decisions were made by people with degrees and titles and authority. But she'd learned something those people never understood. The person everyone ignores is the person who sees everything. And once you decide to speak up, once you refuse to look away, once you commit to the truth no matter the cost, you become unstoppable. They'd tried to silence her with threats, with violence, with conspiracy. And she'd brought the entire system crashing down anyway, not because she was special, because she'd paid attention when everyone else decided not to. And that, Maya had learned, was the most powerful thing in the world, the truth, witnessed by someone who refused to stay silent. She hung up the phone after scheduling an investigation, looked out her window at the city moving below, and smiled. Because somewhere out there, someone was screaming. And finally, someone was listening.